awesome.
I got the new dance moves for the next 2 months.
You're set. You got places to go, people to see. You go dancing fairly often then, huh?
Twice a week if we can.
Where do you go?
Well, Medina every Tuesday afternoon.
Oh, I didn't know they had dances and things down there.
Yeah, every afternoon from 1 to 4.
Huh.
Some people leave work a little early.
Wow. That's dedication.
Oh, it's exercise. I wouldn't be walking around if I didn't do that. Oh.
Keeps you young.
Yeah.
So, well, how about we start out just quick introducing you, and we'll get the date in there. It's July 25th, 2013, and this is Rebecca Mavenkamp, and I'm interviewing Ruth Dixon. And if you could just spell your name.
RUTHDIXON.
And your maiden name.
Is Mielke. MIELKE.
Perfect. And you said you were born in 1929?
Yes. January 30th, 1929.
And you got married, what year?
August 25th in 1949.
So you said you're coming up on a pretty important anniversary.
Yeah, next year is going to be 65 years.
It's very impressive.
And we traveled around a lot and enjoyed ourselves and was blessed with many things. Good health was one of them. Our healthiest living was up in North Dakota.
Okay. How many years did you live up there?
36 years.
Okay.
And 5 years down in Missouri, but I didn't like all the bugs.
Yeah, it's nice when they freeze off around here.
The cockroaches and the chiggers.
Ugh.
The chiggers were so itchy I couldn't stand them. Now I found out they're also in Minnesota this summer.
They're moving in, huh?
Mm-hmm.
So where did you raise your children?
Had 2 were born in Missouri, were born in North Dakota.
Okay.
And let's see, yeah, they all went to school up in North Dakota.
Okay.
Missouri, they were too small.
What brought you back to Minnesota then?
Well, when my husband retired, we said we're going back to Minnesota. Our 4 children are now in Minnesota, and we wanted to go where there was more dances. But many of the dance halls have closed up, so we still have to find some.
South Dakota wasn't known for its polkas, huh?
Well, we danced. I should give my my map out. I have a United States map, and I think we've gone and danced in 23 states.
Wow.
So we traveled with a lot. I worked.
Where did you work?
It was with Nagel Hardware at that time, but now it's a parking lot,
Okay.
a ramp. And
So you said there was a bus that came.
yeah, Liederbach
Okay.
bus line. It went on from Minneapolis all the way up to the Canadian line, the North Dakota line. And stopped at all the little towns.
Okay.
I don't know, I think I was out of state when that line stopped,
Okay.
so, but it was handy. I didn't need a car.
Right. Right.
And then I went to the dance one Wednesday night, and then I met somebody that I had to go back and forth to all the time.
And who would that somebody be?
I still got him.
Why don't you tell me about the night that you met?
Well, how are you people getting along?
Well, look at this. We were just talking about the night that you met.
Yeah. Yeah. I needed a ride back to the city, and he was going back, so that went come in handy.
You were just a taxi service, huh?
Well, yeah, and he says if I didn't marry him, he was going to charge me for bus fare.
Well, I'll leave the room, then you can talk more about it.
That's the end of that.
Huh?
That's the end of that.
Okay.
Well, I went on for about 3 years. It been pretty.
That would have been a pretty big gas bill.
Is your native area Monticello?
No, I started in St. Louis Park and then graduated from Buffalo.
Oh, is that right? Oh, did you go to high school in Buffalo then too?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
What year did you graduate?
95.
95? Well, that wasn't too long.
No. No. So what was it about her that you liked?
What?
What caught your eye about Ruth?
We danced. We both knew how to dance.
Yeah.
We've been dancing ever since.
I hear you do quite a bit of it.
No, I don't know. I never
Well, I think we
met her before.
Yeah. Oh,
I met you told her where we met.
yeah, at the dance hall. Yeah. I don't know. We had, for some reason or other, we agreed on most of the stuff. So I guess that's what.
You know what was
Maybe.
even ironical about it? We both went to the same church. We were confirmed by the same pastor, but different years.
Oh, okay.
But I had never met her yet until later on.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
Well, most of the time, if my folks went anywhere, somebody always had to stay home with the resort and stuff. And I had heard of his name, but I didn't know. So, but he was a good dancer.
That's the important part.
Yeah. Well, I was going to dances with my folks from little on because I have an uncle that was a drummer.
Oh, okay.
And my folks used to drive him home because he always got so tired and almost went in the ditch and would fall asleep.
Which band did he play in?
He played with Stalky's band out of New Germany.
Okay. So they would come up to the pavilion and play too?
Well, when we lived down south by Watertown for a while when I was younger, then we were only living a mile away from where he lived.
Oh, okay.
And years ago, the dances used to go from 9 until, was it 1 o'clock at night?
Okay.
You know, and that it was just too. But that people were working during the day. They
Sure.
would go later.
Yeah.
Another thing I was going to mention in Minneapolis that used to trap turtles.
Okay.
And there was one time I just could not get over it. I had to go talk to this guy. And my mother said, well, okay, but that's all, you know. Be careful and don't get hurt now. So here he had his own boat and he came to the lake, and then when he was off, he had a turtle in that boat that was wider than his boat.
And how wide were the boats?
Well, I don't know, I suppose usually in the middle the boat would be, maybe 2 people could sit on a seat.
Okay.
And this turtle was like in the middle of the boat on one of those seats and was partially over the edge. And I thought, oh, that was a big turtle. And then I says, well, how can you trap a turtle? You know, it's so big.
Right.
I was thinking of a big trap. And then he showed me. It was just like a little box, a wire box, about 6 inches by 4, and we put food in there, and when the turtle reaches its head in there, it shuts up, and he can't pull his head back under his cover, and so then he drowns.
Oh, okay.
And they used to serve turtle meat in the restaurants in the city. Now my brother had, one time when I came home to visit, he was going to have a turtle supper, and I should stay. I says, we can't. John's got to get back for work. And so I never did get a taste of that turtle. But they were so big. And this was another thing that the kids wanted to see, when they wanted to chase the turtle away so they could swim. I says, no, just let them alone. They won't do anything. They want to build a nest.
Right.
Oh, turtles can't make a nest. How can they make a nest? I says, you just watch them. They're going to wiggle their tail down in the sand, and they're going to lay their eggs there. Well, this I got to see. When did the... you know. So then they would leave them alone. It was because our beach line was sandy.
Okay.
And then, I'm not sure just when they actually hatched. I suppose it was early in the spring. But, could they have one of those little turtles? I said, well, you can if you put a little food in and then you put it in water. And then maybe as it gets bigger and you don't want to take care of it anymore, then go put it by a lake and let it keep living. And so there was a lot of, when they were in a cabin, then they would sometimes keep it until they left, and then they'd put it back in the lake again.
Okay.
Because they didn't know what to do with it once they got home.
Now these were the city kids you were
Yes,
talking about.
yes, yeah. So we had it was a serving bowl of a type where it had a big ridge with a little mound like in the middle where you could set a plant or decorate a centerpiece. And so we had one on our porch for a while. And the turtle would go down in the water around the outer edge, and then when it wanted to get the sun, it would go up on that little hill.
Oh, funny.
And we had that out by the opening where people could come and check out the boat or pay for it and leave. So it was one way of showing the kids that they don't hurt you, you know,
Right.
and you can let them go. Well, now the way the lakes are getting, the shores are getting so full of weeds, and the turtles can't get up there to the sand. I found that out because we have a cabin right now, and the weeds were gone until 2 years ago. Now, I don't know where the seeds came from or how it spread over there, because there was clam shells that were there, there was the geese, and we've got some wood ducks and stuff that are, they could always come off and sit on the sand, and now they won't do that because the weeds are in their way and they get tangled up in them. So, and then the kids don't like to go swimming.
Right.
Because it's mushy and weedy.
Yeah.
And because they've cut the weeds off.
Sure, taking care of the
Yeah.
lake shore.
So.
Did your dad ever do anything to the beach?
No, we didn't have to. But like now our farmyard, when we would bring the cattle home, they would all run down and get into the water.
Oh, okay.
And now that's you can't do that either
Right.
anymore.
Right.
And yet, they never dropped any of their droppings in the water.
Well,
They would run down there, cool off, and drink a little bit, and then come out. They never stayed in the water.
hmm.
Now, I don't know if only farm cattle would do that or what. I didn't experience any other kind. But, you know, we had that farm as long as we had the resort.
Can you describe the farm and where the cattle would go for me?
Let's see now. Well, as they came into, okay, here's your railroad track, driveway. And this was a cabin right here. And this was the house. And these were these other these other sheds. I'll just put sheds here. That would have been the garage, ice house, chicken house, and then back here would be the barnyard. Here was a barn. And here's the lawn, and you go down to the lake. The barn, the cows would come in from the road, across the railroad tracks. They'd come in here, run over here, and right here was a gate to go down to the lake. And back here was the door coming out or in the barn, and then there was a fence here. And they would come out and they'd go up into here, and Dad would fence them up in this backyard.
Okay.
And they'd stay there for the night, and there was a hay, a pile of hay and stuff, and they would eat out there, because this was high ground here. But when they'd first come in, they'd run down here, get to the water, and they'd go up out here. So it was the lake, the line. There was no weeds in there, and we could walk out. There was no drop off either. There was you could walk out. Oh gosh, way above your chin to I would say at least 8, 10 feet of water.
Okay.
And there wouldn't be any weeds or anything.
Hmm.
It was all sand and stuff. Because my sister, when she was, we'd play with little inner tubes, and she'd hang on to those. And my folks did not know how to swim.
Okay.
So we were taught, and we told anybody with kids when they came to the lake, if they want to go swimming, walk out as far as you're comfortable and swim in. Don't ever swim out.
Sure.
Because I was out farther, and she thought that she didn't think it was that deep.
Oh.
And she let go of the inner tube, and she went down
Oops.
and over her head. Well, and I threw the inner tube to her right away because that had popped away.
Okay.
But I had to watch that all the time, even Art the little rascal. Oh, God. If you couldn't find him, he was down by the lake.
Because he was several years younger than you, right?
Yeah, he's, let's see, at least 9 years younger. Yeah, because I was 10 years old, and almost 10, when we moved there. And Art was born just before we moved.
Okay.
He was a baby. Well, his birthday's in January, too.
So you had a pretty responsible childhood.
Well, yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, I was either by my mother's side or my dad's side all the time, helping. Watching for this or watching for people coming driving in, or watch what's on the stove, I gotta go out there, or what, you know. And so it was like, and then watch those two little ones. I'd lose track of Art. And he'd go down and he'd go crawl in one of the boats, and he'd lay over there and he'd watch those fish swim until he was dizzy and he fell out into the lake. But the water was only 10 inches deep where he was
Sure.
probably, and he just stood up and yeah, so. And then, he probably didn't tell you this, but oh God. We always had to cut the lawn and cut the grass, and it was a slope. And it was one of these rotary lawnmowers. And he would come crawling behind. I had to pull it backwards, so I was pulling the lawnmower going up the hill so I could cut going down. And he was crawling behind, and he got his finger cut off.
Oops.
And so he says, "Yeah, you're mean to me. You cut my finger off." And my mother, right away, she took him into the doctor, and it was hanging just by the skin on the side, and that finger didn't take hold, so that's always been a short finger.
Sure.
He says, "Remember this?" I said, "Yeah, you were grown up enough to walk. You didn't have to crawl." But it right at the joint. So it really didn't damage his hand all that much, but anyway.
Whoops.
Yeah, those little accidents can happen. Yeah. Let's see, other than the turtles. Oh, another thing which was attractive to the resort was winter fishing.
Okay.
There was a lot of people that brought their fish houses down because they could drive all the way down to the lake to do it and unload because it was level. It was a nice level area. And I even speared some fish and caught them.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I had to hurry up and do my work so I could go down there. And there was stuff year round. There always had to be somebody at home. Or a lot of times, if somebody wanted to come out from the city, and he says, "Well, I can't be out long, but I'd like to come extra early. Would you care if I drove in at 4 in the morning or real early?" And well, no, because you're probably getting ready anyhow to go do chores and other things. And he says, and I'd like to have a can of some bait ready. So okay, well, we'll assign you to the oars. We'll put the oars in a place where you can find them, and a certain number you can take that boat. And so they would come early in the morning and pick up the bait would be with the boat overnight, and they could go down and start fishing. We wouldn't be alarmed when we would hear a car or something come in. Because at that time of the year it was daylight early or whatever. And but there were people that came back year after year and month after month. It was, well, some of them even came to our wedding.
So you got to be very friendly with the people that
Yeah,
came.
yeah. There was a lot of people that, I still remember some of them, and in fact, one of them, years later, they didn't, I don't know, it was, the weather was so much warmer or something, but we ended up keeping them in the hay barn and then let them go out. We'd open it up if they wanted to go out in the snow, and they'd play around and eat the snow a little bit, but then they'd stay back in the mound because we had an area where you could drive in all the time. And that's because we had the cows on one side and the horses on the other side of the barn.
Oh, okay.
And it was, they stayed in there, so they liked it, I guess.
What did you feed them?
They ate on some of the hay, the leaves, the alfalfa, and then Dad would throw some wheat in there, and we had the water. Well, we didn't have electricity out there until 1946.
Okay.
And so he had a generator on top of the barn,
Oh,
and then that's how he got water to the barn and to the. There again, it was one of his ingenuities.
you said he had many ingenuities.
Yeah. And then the cabins all had kerosene lamps.
Okay.
We had a little gasoline, no, one of those with a little mantle. I think that was a different type of gas that we used in those gas lamps.
Just the regular oil lamps with the wick?
Well, there was a wick, a wick that lit up, but I know we had to use some special stuff for that because that way I'd hang it in the kitchen. And otherwise we had lamp gas. There was two different kinds.
Okay.
And there was the northern states had a power line up to the neighbor on the one side, and REA to the neighbor on the other side. And then one year my mother said, "That's enough. We deserve electricity just as well as everybody else." So she wrote a letter to the electrical company in the city and said, "How long do we have to be out here before we can get anything?" And then it didn't take too long. Then there was a power company that,
As soon as you make a little noise.
yeah, that they decided to come in. So then, but that was in '46, and I don't know how long they really waited, because it was quite a while. But they really couldn't afford to get the house and all that stuff wired right away because they were in debt when they moved there to begin with. And my uncle was an electrical engineer, and he wired houses. So he came over, and then they put electricity in the house, the barn, and all the cabins.
Nice.
So, see, the cabins back then years was very rustic.
Okay.
There was only one wall, and that was the outside board. But my mother and I, we painted them so that they would be a little bit nicer. And then on the 2x4 beams that hold the cross up on the roof, on one side we wrote "Good morning," and on the other side "Good night." Have a great day, and painted a few flowers in between on the boards and the inside.
Oh, cute.
And then they all had a porch, so we'd put a few things out there. That's usually where they left their boots and all the other equipment, because it was a screen porch.
Oh, okay.
And there was one cabin up behind the house that was just a one bedroom. The size, I should say, for a one bedroom. Otherwise, there was no rooms except that one that was close to the house where the parents had their parents living in
Okay.
for a while. Otherwise, everything was wide open. So, uh, had a lot of jokes with the kids that were up there, you know. They had to put a curtain up or
Oh, no.
something. Yeah, so it
So
was-
were there bunk beds? in there then?
No, there was regular beds. They were metal beds. And then some had cots that they brought along.
Oh, okay.
And then, like in the summertime, they would maybe put a cot out on the porch
Oh, okay.
and kids would sleep in.
Sure.
So, but yeah, there was a lot of laundry and a lot of ironing, pillowcases and sheets and whatever.
So you did all of the housekeeping yourself?
Yeah, yeah. I often thought, here's where we need those. Remember when the ironing was a big waffle iron almost.
Oh, sure.
You know, to do some
Yeah,
of the
the
sheets
big
and some
press.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we didn't get one though. I just used iron.
Is it an iron from the stove?
We had one, but no, we had a gas iron that we had. And I was very, very careful because I was so darn afraid of fire.
Mm-hmm.
See, the house, that was why we moved. That lightning had struck the house where we were living south of
Okay.
Watertown. And and then before that, my sister had been 3 weeks in the hospital, and so they just couldn't afford to buy the place.
Mhm.
And so we moved and went up. Another relative was helping with finances, and so it was like starting all over again. And, and then 2 years after we were there was this huge hailstorm and ruined all the crops. And
Oh, no.
we picked up 9 heavy gunny sacks full of apples off the trees that were going to rot
Oh, no.
because they were all from the hail.
Wow.
Well, that was pig feed at least.
Right, right.
So, you know, there was some tough times those years.
Did you want to move? Are you in the sun? Is it getting
Yeah, no,
getting painful?
it's getting too bright.
Yeah.
On the,
You just want to move down one chair, we can
Yeah.
shift?
there we go. I think I covered the things that I had thought about and was going to write more about. And
Well, you had some pictures here that you were going to talk to me about as well.
Let's see. Well, these two are the same, so I just write my name down on here. Or who they are, anyway. Let's see. They were married May 3rd, I forget what year. Wait a minute. I was born in 29. They were married then in May 3rd, 1928. Because Ma said they were accusing her she had to get married. She said, I did not. They didn't count right. Just because it was close to it. So I think that I got the date figured out right.
They sound like very fun people.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No, they did. They went and enjoyed stuff. Well, see, she had 2 sisters and 4 brothers. and I stood up for her youngest brother when he got married.
Oh, okay.
So they were kind of scattered.
Can you tell me more about them as people?
We were all German.
And that says it all right there.
Right there. Yeah, mother graduated in 8th grade in German, going to German school, and so did Dad. Dad lived in Montrose area. Lindale, well, see, Lindale was a little. Well, there's a creamery that's now a shop of historical things.
Okay.
And there was a creamery and a feed mill, I think. That was all that was there at Lindale.
Okay.
And then that creamery is still standing because we go by it every so often. Now I think they call that Highway 20. They changed all the numbers of the roads.
Mm-hmm.
When we moved back to Minnesota, I thought, when I wanted to go down to Watertown from Plymouth, and I thought, am I on the right road? I've traveled this road, I don't know, umpteen times. And so then there was a guy that was real close to the road in his driveway, and he was working in his shop. And I thought, I better ask and find out where I am. And so I stopped and I asked him, and he says, no, you're on the right road, just keep on going. And they just changed the numbers. But it was strange.
Who did you prefer to be with when you were young, Mom or Dad?
I was with both of them so much, and Dad was easy to talk to and get along with, and so was my mother. My mother, I would say, well, I'm only going to say it once. That's it. And she said, I don't care how bad or what you did, I want to know about it. You know, but don't ever lie to me.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, gee, I goofed or whatever, you know, but you don't ever lie about it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to talk to me about it, fine, you know, but, oops, I better run this. Because we all make mistakes, you know, and so she was easygoing that way. But when she said something, she wanted it done, so. Sarah driveway, yeah, I think this probably explains things. That's the road coming in. And now this is actually the farm off the highway. That was at the highway. I don't know if you want this one or not.
Well, of course.
Oh, okay. This is the highway near Lindale. Yeah, it's on here. Yeah.
Okay, and that was where you grew up.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see. I was probably was about 4 or 5 years old when we moved from here, because great-grandparents had passed away south of Watertown, and see, the two families each had a farm, and so now, and that house had burnt down all the way, the brick house on that farm. And Grandpa built a new house out there, and then they wanted somebody on it, and that's when my folks moved down to closer to, well, I don't know if you ever heard of the Hollywood store. It's south and a little west of Watertown, about.
What was the name?
Hollywood store.
Okay.
It's in Hollywood Township.
Okay.
And then my uncle had a farm there, and then the two great-grandparents had their farms side by side.
Okay.
And they wanted somebody in the house, well, yeah. Ma and I were scraping floors and varnishing and cleaning up after that first fire. And then the fire um, when Ron was not Ron, that's my son. When Art was born, he was born in that house, the new one, and lightning struck the house again.
Hmm.
And we sat in that house for about an hour. And my mother was going to put Art to bed. And when she went in the bedroom, those pink curtains looked doggone pink.
Oh no.
So she looked up behind them, and here she could see flames coming off the side of the house.
Oh no.
They're burning between the walls.
Oh no.
So they had to prepare it, and my folks, they had just brought my sister shortly before that home from the hospital. She had a ruptured appendix, and so they said, no, we're going to have to move. So from August till, well, we weren't around because my uncle took my sister and I up to Rockford. And then he dropped us off at the country school out there, just out of town a ways. And then we would walk over to his in-laws until he'd come and pick us up towards evening. So my folks could get all that other stuff arranged.
And what was their name?
Herbert Becker.
Okay.
They're both gone now, both him and her. But they lived on the south side of Lake Sarah.
Okay.
So yeah, it's written on your 1938? 1931, I guess it is. That could be. See, that would make it about from 29 to 31 is 2 years, and they were there yet for a little while after that. Because my other grandpa, he wanted them to keep on farming so that he could come and stay. Yeah, and that grandpa started the corn factory in Watertown.
Oh.
Corn canning factory.
Okay.
Him and 3 other farmers around there. So,
So ingenuity runs in the family.
yeah,
Huh?
yeah. Well, they got together with a lot of people and they would borrow from each other, and like this one fella, he was doing so good, and a lot of times some of them couldn't quite make it. Well, they lost some of that, but he had helped them as much as he could. So, but yeah, it used to be you borrowed from another person, maybe a brother or a stranger or somebody who was doing okay. Well, let's see. I don't know what to. Yeah, Dad Milky is back here. He's the Santa Claus. I don't know if you want any written stuff or anything about that.
Do you remember this day?
ended up being a farmer's wife anyway. Anyhow, one other time, you got to be really careful. If you see a crack, you yell so that the rest of them, because if your skate gets caught in that crack,
Yeah.
you trip.
Yeah.
Well, I went down. I hit my chin right there.
Uh-oh.
I thought it's for sure broke my teeth, but I didn't. And then one of them went back home, got the sled, and hauled me home. I saw purple and red stars, and I can still see those stars.
Just like the cartoons.
Oh, and I thought, what is Mom gonna say? Oh, God. I hope I didn't break something in my mouth. Oh. But it wasn't too bad. No, I just got knocked out. So, but what you don't try sometimes, and I don't know what's going to happen.
So people came and rented the resorts, rented the cabins, even in the winter?
Yes, late, because we did have the heat in some of them. The one by the house, that had a stove in it, a heater that you could put some wood in and burn and make it warmer. Because see, that was because